I know I'm a little late to the party, but you probably heard that Splice has bought Spitfire Audio. This happened about 4 weeks ago from me making this video, so it is old news. But there's one thing which has puzzled me and which I find slightly hilarious, which I haven't seen mentioned before. So I'd like to talk about that and ask you what you think. So just in case you are not familiar with Splice or Spitfire Audio, in brief, Splice is a subscription service online. There are various categories of subscription and it allows you to download samples, loops, sample packs, stuff like that, which you can use in your own music. Spitfire Audio, you've probably heard of that if you're watching this channel from a music perspective. They produce, in their own words, or at least in the words of Christian Henderson, who was a founder member, although he did leave the company a few years ago. In his words, they produce ridiculously expensive libraries. So you might think that this is a meeting of sample producers and there's a good synergy there, but I struggle to see that, and here is why. Now I just have to make a slight detour into the world of YouTube and Content ID and copyright strikes. If you have a YouTube channel, you are almost certainly aware of copyright strikes, even if you haven't suffered from any. This happens if YouTube determines that a piece of your content, it could be music or it could be an image or a video, has been used or has been copyrighted by someone else. Now it's usually not fatal. They normally give you a bit of a ticking off and tell you that you can't monetize that video. Instead, any income from your video goes to the copyright holder. And you might think that's fair, and it probably would be. YouTube uses, I think it's YouTube's system, they use a system called Content ID, which is, quite frankly, simply not fit for purpose. Now, many channels have suffered from this. I've had 2 or 3 copyright strikes. One was for a piece of music by Chopin, which I was playing, so there's absolutely nowhere anyone, or hopefully anything, could think that this actual piece of music had been copyrighted. Another was for an image by NASA, one of NASA's space probes, and they put these images in the public domain. So this Content ID system simply doesn't work properly. People have been copyright struck for filter sweeps. Can you believe it? It's a bit amazing to think that Google, because Google owns YouTube, it's amazing to think that Google, with all its artificial intelligence capabilities, is not able to create a system, a Content ID system, which actually works properly. Anyway, enough of that. Let's get back to composers. Now, if you are a professional, semi-professional composer, or if someone is paying you money to write an original piece of music, you do not want this piece of music going up on YouTube and getting a copyright strike. Even if it is 100% original, there's no guarantee that won't happen, but you certainly don't want that happening if you have used a loop from Splice. Now, there are sync libraries, or music production libraries as they are known, where a company who is producing a video can go and get a piece of music to use in their video, all legal and above board. And this music is produced by musicians, possibly like you, who create music and submit it to these music production libraries. However, because of the problems associated with Content ID, not just that, I'll get onto another aspect in a second, but certainly because of the problems of Content ID, many of these companies will not accept music which have used samples or loops from Splice. And quite rightly too, in my opinion. Now, people obviously use these libraries because it is a lot cheaper than hiring a composer to write a totally bespoke piece of music. However, I would imagine that most professional or semi-professional composers, if they are being paid to write a piece of music, I suspect they will not want to use samples, loops, or anything from Splice. Now, Hans Zimmer, in his masterclass, I reviewed that a while ago, link in description, he said he does not use presets. Now, I suspect a large reason why he doesn't use presets is because he can't have people thinking, oh, that's a loop from Splice. How to wreck your music career in 1.5 seconds. that is not the reason he actually gave. If you want to find out what it is, I made a video about that as well. But as a professional composer, or any composer who is getting paid to produce original music, I don't think they can take the risk of using pre-recorded loops and samples. I think it has to be 100% original. Let me know what you think about that. Now, to get back to Splice and Spitfire, a lot of pundits were worried that this takeover might lead Spitfire down the subscription path. Well, they already have a subscription model called Labs Plus. There may be some overlap there. Splice might integrate Labs Plus into their services. They might also offer Spitfire libraries as a subscription service. Who knows? I don't know. I'm just speculating. But what I find slightly hilarious is that a company which I don't think most professional composers would use has taken over a company which is pretty much dedicated to professional composers. Now, maybe that's the strategy, so they get the non-professionals and the professionals, and this one company, this big Splice Spitfire company, gets everybody. That might be the plan. So Splice apparently bought Spitfire for 50 million, I don't know if it was pounds or dollars, but it had an awful lot of noughts on the end, whatever the figure was. So this suggests two things. First of all, they must be making an absolute killing with their subscription service in order to afford to buy the company. The second is that Spitfire must be worth an awful lot of money if Splice paid 50 million for it, which underlies two facts. Subscription services are very profitable for the company. Needless to say, I think most subscription services, if not all of them, are severely overpriced. Secondly, there is a massive amount of money to be made from selling digital audio products, and for some reason sample libraries seem to have a higher perceived value than VST plugins. In some cases you might imagine, well, if they're going to hire an orchestra and do all this sampling and fiddling about and scripting and whatever, that's going to take longer, but it's not necessarily going to take longer than producing a good VST. Now, if you've seen some of my other videos, you will know that I tend to think that plugins are overpriced, so you can probably guess that I also think sample libraries are even more overpriced. I just tend to think if they were more sensibly priced, then more people would use them and the companies would make more money and more people would be happy. But that is generally not the way these things go. Companies want to make as much money as possible and they want us to pay as much as possible too. Anyway, I shall get off my soapbox now, but do let me know what you think of this whole situation and where it might be heading, and if this is a trend we are likely to see going forward, companies being taken over, this move to subscription services, which a few companies have followed, or at least many companies are offering a subscription service on top of their existing product. So is this the way we are heading? Now again, it's all about money, isn't it? If these things were more sensibly priced, I would be happy to subscribe to them, really. And I am making another video shortly on that very subject. So if you want to find out what that is all about, there's a big subscribe button down there. Oh, am I subtle or what? There's a big subscribe button down there. If you have enjoyed this video, clicking the big thumbs up button would be a massive help. As always, thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. I am going to try to make some music now. Thank you again, and we'll see you in the next video.